What day is it? Friday.
Yeah.
Welcome to Friday. We're back. I'm back.
Yeah. Here we are.
You're going to be mad at me because I actually am gone next week too. My childhood best friend is having a baby and I'm going to go see her. So might be a long one because we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to catch up on. And it might seem a little weird. I just basically went through my Twitter page, and so it's somewhat in chronological order. But first, we watched Spencer last night, and it was
awful.
Terrible.
Terrible.
So bad.
So bad.
Like
the worst.
It wasn't fun to watch. It wasn't
like enlightening in any way or illuminating. It was very
it was terrible. My stepdad literally went, "The music in this makes me hate everything."
Yeah, the music
so
it was
terrible.
very strange. I can't think of another movie where the music sort of just overshadowed everything, and to the point where I was actually paying attention to it, like, because it was just so awful.
Well,
it didn't like, I think music is supposed to sort of complement things and set a mood, and all it did was make everyone mad.
Well, and I think we just wanted an escape. We needed to pay attention to something that wasn't the movie because it felt like such a hit job on Princess Diana. They made her seem crazy. Legitimately crazy.
They made her seem legit crazy. They gave I suppose you're just supposed to jump into the movie knowing all the backstory, knowing everything that had happened. But they made no attempt to like set it all up or even to give any, clearly she, I guess, didn't get along with the family, although, 90% of the movie is just her by herself. Having a meltdown about one thing or another. And they didn't really explain how the family might have contributed to that, other than, she'd kind of mutter about things that seemed ridiculous. But I found her character so completely kind of unlikable that her muttering about things was not very convincing.
And there were so many things like pigeonholed into it. Like we had to have a ghost. Yeah. And then at the end, a random lesbian for no apparent reason.
Yeah, very strange.
Party on, but like, why?
Yeah. And then the very last scene is just suddenly out of nowhere, her happy with the boys in the car listening to like pop music.
Yeah, it makes her seem like a crazy person.
After like a whole soundtrack of depressing, weird jazz and other strange music choices, to suddenly get poppy on the whole thing. And clearly she did seem happy with the boys, and the time with the boys during the movie was, I guess, okay. Although
the kid actors were good. The kid actors outacted her.
Yeah, and she seemed a little manipulative with them, maybe, but it seemed happy. So if she was so miserable during these 3 days of being there for Christmas, I don't get why she just didn't hang out with the kids the whole time. That was the only time she seemed happy.
It didn't really seem to have a message other than pretty set pieces,
brooding, crazy.
Yes.
Diana.
Yes.
It was
a hit job.
Yeah, it was.
I would be very happy if I was a member of the royal family with that movie.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I feel like my fears about Kristen Stewart in that role were validated, because I didn't think she was particularly good.
Well, it was just so breathy. And I don't know. It was. We said when the movie was first announced, they would have to find a line between showing Diana as a woman who was under immense pressure, was literally being hunted down by paparazzi. The royal family was obviously not being supportive. She may or may not have had an eating disorder at that time. Showing that versus just making her crazy, and this just made her crazy.
Yeah. Crazy and sort of unsympathetic and annoying. And, it just...
Boo.
Yeah, it was...
I give it...
It was bad.
Out of 5 stars, what do you give it?
Half.
Maybe
1 if I'm feeling generous.
We give it 0.5 stars.
Yeah.
Out of 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then we watched Love Actually, and all was well with the world.
We did. We watched Love Actually.
And I know that some people don't care for that movie, and there's probably all kinds of problems with it, but I love it, and we watched it, and it made us happy after a terrible Spencer. So.
Yeah, we had to do something to boost the mood on Thanksgiving. Yeah. Okay. So, moving on past our movie review skills, we do not recommend
Or
Spencer.
lack thereof.
So the UK press announced like 2 weeks ago that we might not see the Queen publicly until February. Which...
That was like the weirdest. Like, how did they pick February?
Okay,
I mean, it's the dumbest
Can I
thing.
finish reading my prompt, Mom? Which seems like a guess.
Yeah.
But it also, she's been dropping out of engagements again. Again, we're going back to kind of places where she is not seen standing. Something's up with the Queen.
Well, I feel, but plus, didn't they say we're not going to see her, and then we saw her at something?
No, she went to that private christening. So they're saying publicly. She went to a private christening where there were no cameras other than her in the car, and she didn't look very good. But it would be a really, really big deal if she misses the Christmas service. If she doesn't walk into that church on Christmas Day.
Do you think maybe they'll get her to this church? I mean, I know she doesn't walk there anymore.
But she walks into the church.
But do you think maybe they'll... I mean, it seems incredible that she would miss it entirely. Could they, like, sneak her in without...
Like backdoor Queen?
Yeah.
I mean, probably. I don't know. And they'll just say maybe it's private.
Yeah. I just thought that was so randomly, like, why February? I mean...
Because they do that royal break. Like, they basically all take, like, a month and a half off for Christmas.
Yeah.
They do that big, well, not all of them, but like they do this big push right before Christmas to be like, oh, hey, we're here, it's Christmas, we're your royal family, and then they disappear for weeks.
Which is even a weirder, why did they even make an announcement? I feel like the announcement was just kind of we're starting to give hints that, you know.
Yeah, well, it wasn't an official announcement, it was just from the press, but like that they're giving hints.
Yeah. That
prepare to see the Queen less.
Yeah, or not at all.
Or not at all.
Yeah.
And then the big one, Meghan was on Ellen after this, which was silly and fun and fine, which evoked enough of a response that Rhoda had to remind people she hadn't committed a war crime. Numerous UK press outlets live streamed it and their coverage following. And it was like this huge thing.
Yeah. Which is for being on Ellen and doing a little goofy, like, thing with the farmer's market guy or whatever.
Well, and of course, Charles and Camilla are on a tour that got booted off the front page. Not that their tours ever make the front pages anymore, but what little coverage that was getting was now booted even farther down the line. William and Kate went to this gala thing where, by the way, in her little glittery dress, you can see the outline of Kate's hip bone. So that's cool. But they were booted off the front pages because Meghan was on Ellen in the United States.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, which for someone they claim not to, like, care about, they sort of twist themselves in knots to, like,
talk about
her with anything. Oh, she was on an afternoon talk show. Woo!
Well, so the woo here, though, is she came across as very, like, kind and relatable, and, like, she doesn't take herself super seriously. And the problem arises that the spare's wife can do something the heir's wife can't. Yeah. Which is every time Kate goes on something where she tries to appear relatable, she doesn't. It's stiff, it's not good. And so therein lies the problem. Meghan can be goofy, relatable, nice, and the heir's wife can't.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, you know, some people just have that and some don't. I mean, it's not even like necessarily a slam on Kate. I mean, some people just are better at things than other things. But there should be better ways to handle it than to just flip out over, you know, a talk show appearance.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the hashtag.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought it was cute.
It was very cute.
I wish they would show us pictures of Lily. We're never going to... Maybe on a Christmas card. Maybe that's how one of the first ways we saw Archie. Maybe on a Christmas card.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you know, as much as we would like to see the pictures, you know, the whole intrusive paparazzi is sort of the basis for a lot of what we're talking about,
That's
from
true.
Diana to Harry and Meghan leaving to everything else. And so I get that they don't necessarily want to plaster pictures out there.
I know. I get why they don't do it, but I still want them. It also came out that Harry and Meghan, so they were on the East Coast a week or two ago, and someone posted that they flew back commercially, which
In first class.
well, in first class. Oh my gosh, are you just salty that they get to go to first class and you
Well,
don't?
no, I'm like, no, but I'd be more impressed with like famous people like touting
Oh
their
my
like
gosh.
we flew commercial if they smash themselves into
You
the
just
back
wanna
of the
sit
plane
next
like
to
the rest
Harry?
of us. I don't, but I mean, I mean, it's good. It's fine. It's good they flew commercial. A bigger plane with a lot of people on it is more carbon neutral, not neutral, but carbon
Friendly.
than a private plane
Yes.
for just their family, which obviously would be way more expensive. And they can fly first class, so good on them. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I would fly first class every time if I could afford it. But the kind of, oh, we made such sacrifices to fly commercial in first class, I don't really
They
get.
didn't say anything.
I know.
It didn't come from them. Someone caught like a photo of Harry off the plane.
I know. I'm
Mom's
just
a little
saying.
salty about first class. It's okay.
No, I'm not salty. I would fly first class every time. And when I occasionally find like Alaska Airlines way to do it on the cheap, I would do it myself. It's wonderful. It's 1,000 times better than flying in coach. And so I'm just saying that I don't think it's that really super big a sacrifice.
No, I don't think it is either. But I think for two people who were attacked mercilessly for any kind of private travel, despite the rest of the royal family flying private all the time,
Right.
no one reported it.
And I mean, and maybe they heard the message. So, I mean, maybe they're...
Well, they also didn't fly privately any more than any other
Right.
member of the royal family.
Right. And this is where, even if I could afford to fly private,
Yeah.
like I maybe wouldn't, because small jets scare the crap out of me. And so, I'd rather fly first class on a commercial airline anyway. But that's
Okay.
just me.
All right. My whole point with this prompt was getting to the fact that no one reported it,
Well, of
that
course
they
not,
hounded
because
them to
that's-
death for any kind of private travel, and then it comes back that and even for this trip, they were all like, oh, they're staying in this expensive hotel, which like, duh, and they must have flown private, and then it comes out that they didn't, and it's crickets.
Right. Because,
All right, so we got to where I wanted to go.
Get clicks.
We got to where I wanted to go.
Bad news gets clicks. You know that.
Along with the private travel, Harry and Meghan's house has been increasing in price again lately in the UK press. They stick to the number of bathrooms.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the real estate market has probably been going up. But,
But they do that. They'll whenever Meghan does something they don't like, it's always like they try and remind people that they have a lot of money.
Yeah. Because the rest of the royal family is impoverished.
They're sad, Mom. They live in tiny houses.
And rich people live in expensive houses is, super huge news.
It's very shocking.
Yeah, shocking.
But anyway, their house, so they're mad because their house, the cost of their house is going up again. Same thing with the jewelry.
It's sort of
same things with the
transparent.
clothes.
It's kind of,
Yeah.
well, and the fact that they have to like report on rich people living in rich houses, and Meghan being on Ellen, just shows that they have no real gripes to,
No.
I mean, they're not
No.
doing anything quote unquote bad to report on, so they have to report on nonsense.
Yeah.
They're kind of telling on themselves.
They tell on themselves all
Yeah.
the time. But it was also, when she was in the royal family, what they would do, which would drive me bonkers, is they would count her jewelry and they wouldn't count Kate's. They'd be like, Meghan's outfit cost $500,000, and here's poor Kate in this, $7,000 coat dress. She's so good because she's worn it more than once. And then they wouldn't count any of her jewelry. It used to drive me bonkers.
Yeah, well,
All right.
it's unfair.
This was on my timeline, so we're changing gears. Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty.
Boo.
That was all over my... Boo. That's all we have to say. Boo.
Well, it's, that's what happens in the American justice system, or lack of justice system, where, crazy laws and institutional racism and everything else cause bad verdicts. Here's another.
There was something on Twitter that was like, oh, I let myself into the polar bear enclosure and then I had to shoot all the polar bears.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's ridiculous. And it only applies to like one specific type of person, and that's white men.
Yes.
Like the standing your ground stuff, not even white women, only applies to white men.
Yes.
They're allowed to kill people.
Yes.
Even if they start it.
Yeah. Apparently they can set out from one state, go to another with their AR-15, which
their mom.
The only point of is to shoot people.
Yes.
And when they actually do shoot people, apparently that's just fine and dandy
They were
in the state of
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Because, menacing people with your gun, if they sort of, fight back against that in any way, other than just to let you menace with your gun, you can validly shoot them in Wisconsin, apparently.
That reminds me, it was George Zimmerman, and who did he kill?
Trayvon Martin.
Where, like, Zimmerman started a fist fight with a kid, legally a kid, and when he started losing, he shot him in the chest.
Not even close. I mean, wasn't he like 14? I mean, I don't...
No, I think he was
17?
I think he was close to being an adult, but still, that George Zimmerman started a fight based because the black kid was in his neighborhood, and when he started losing that fist fight, he shot him in the chest. Yeah. And that was fine. Yeah. Because that's self-defense.
Yeah. Maybe he and Kyle Rittenhouse can have a club now.
Gross.
They can go hang out at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump.
Well, no, because George Zimmerman isn't actually white, so they won't like him.
Yeah, they might not like
He was just white presenting. He was whiter than his victim.
Yeah.
Which helps. Then Princess Charlene of Monaco is finally back from South Africa after, I think, almost a year after battling a sinus infection. But now she's supposedly in treatment for some kind of drug and alcohol, while her husband, Prince Albert, is having their kids stand on the balcony with posters saying, "I love you, Mommy."
Yeah, it's very weird. Do you know that the royal family of Monaco is the only royal family in whose presence I have actually been?
Oh, who did you meet from
Well,
Monaco?
I never met them, but Prince Albert.
When he was young?
When he was young.
Okay.
There's a camp in New Hampshire that boys camp where a bunch of mainline Philadelphia folks tend to go, their kids. And when Prince Albert was a teenager, he went there. And at the end of every camp season, they do a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta with all the boys at the camp playing all the roles, including the female ones. And Princess Grace came to see her son. And I went because, it's a long story, but my great-grandfather was one of the founders of this camp. And my dad went there, and my uncles went there, and my grandfather went there. And my youngest uncle for a long time was still a counselor there. And so in the summer and in August, when I was in New Hampshire frequently, we would go see this operetta. And so I think Prince Albert only went there one year. But the year he went there, we went, and he was in the operetta, and Princess Grace with a little Yorkie that she was carrying around was in the crowd, and I saw her from a distance. And
did she look royal?
She looked nice. She looked pretty.
Oh.
I mean, she was older then. Yeah. I mean, it was not a real long time before she died, I don't think. But, so that's my one and only, in the presence of royalty story. But then, that whole Monaco crowd sort of seemed to get very strange. I mean...
Yeah. Well, I mean, supposedly they basically had to, she tried to escape their wedding before they got married and had to be kind of drugged back. And now it's weird.
That marriage has seemed weird from the very get-go.
Well, and it's kind of scary how little, press engagement there is with it. It kind of feels like he can do whatever he wants, and no one is going to pay attention.
Well, in Monaco, he probably can pretty much do what he wants.
Well, I know, but at least maybe international press could pay a little bit more attention. I mean, I think people paying more attention to it might make him, at least to outwardly, do things differently.
I think that's true, but I don't know. I mean, I just feel like it's been a long time since the royal family of Monaco has really been in the news here.
No, that's true, but I think he's like torturing his wife.
That's bad.
I
Bad
know.
things happen all over the world, and our press doesn't report on them.
And they get to fly in first class, so mom doesn't care. And then, so kind of a convergence happened after this. Again, I'm just going chronologically down my Twitter timeline, where more attention was driven, even by UK press, that Jason Knopf, which is the press secretary of Kensington Palace, mom's nodding, I'm just going to do a little recap, basically wouldn't have released his text with Meghan unless Prince William gave him permission, which we all knew, but there were actually quite a few articles basically saying, because I mean, this is shocking that one of Diana's sons would be working with a tabloid against a member of his own family. Like, that's just crazy.
It is crazy. But I probably shows how, I mean, I think he feels, I don't know, maybe desperate to like get good press and not be overshadowed by his younger brother, who in the scheme of things, you know, isn't supposed to be very relevant.
Yeah, desperate. Or I just think he's, I feel like, so, I mean, I think he's a shitty person. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah.
But I also think in his role, like, how could he not buy the company line? Like, he's going to be the king. Right. So I think he has, whereas his brother Harry has very much sided with his mom and her friends and her relatives of how this whole thing went down. And I think Prince William was there for a while, and then he got older and now is going to, you know, eventually be the monarch of this institution. I just, at some point, I think he had to buy he either had to leave or he had to buy the company line, which was, Diana was crazy. Thank you, Spencer. Yeah. You know, she was paranoid. She not deserved what happened to her, but that the family played absolutely no role in her eventual demise. And I think he's bought that.
Well, that seems to be the case from all outward appearances at this point.
So kind of with all these kind of random articles, BBC documentary started, which apparently the interviews for were filmed back in like 2020, where multiple rota were clear that leaks were coming out of Kensington Palace. So that pissed the palaces off. All three biggies did this like press release saying, oh, this is, you know, not true, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't even that it was super pro Meghan, to be honest. It was just, they were very frank that Kensington Palace was leaking this first episode. It looks like the further episodes are going to become kind of more anti-Meghan. But it was kind of like the first big UK thing to be like, yeah, no, he was definitely leaking. Which we knew.
Yeah. And so they got in a little snit. And...
yeah. And so now a Kate Christmas thing, which but BBC had already passed on.
Christmas carols, not Mother Carol.
Not Mother Carol. Christmas carols.
You said Kate Carol. It sounded like maybe it could be like she and her mother.
Oh.
Maybe they could do a podcast.
They're not nearly as personable as us. But so this carol thing, Christmas carol thing, apparently BBC had already passed on, but then they made this big stink about how now it's going to ITV, who has been much more protective, at least, of the Cambridge image than the BBC. But this first episode, as far as it goes, again, it wasn't necessarily super pro Meghan, but it definitely wasn't pro Cambridge either.
Why are we calling them Cambridge?
Cambridge?
Cambridge.
I don't know. Who gives a shit?
I know. They don't use their last name anyway, so. I mean, it's not even their last name, but.
Who gives a shit?
I know.
It's some weird British thing. Cambridge, potato, patada. No one says potato.
It's potato.
Whatever.
And no one says potato. Anyway.
Or patada.
I think it's just sort of funny that they got their so up in arms about, oh, now you don't get our Christmas special. I mean, it's just juvenile. It's like...
Well, and I just don't get how an institution can be so obvious in the, like, we control... Like, if the press doesn't do what we want, we will punish them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, I mean, they claim to have a free press.
Yeah.
But your royal family's out here going, do you? Because if they don't do what we want, we punish them. openly.
That doesn't seem like a free press.
Doesn't seem like a free press. In the same documentary, a private investigator apologized for targeting Prince Harry and his ex-girlfriends. Apparently, there's been a long history of voicemail and text hacking. But it brought up kind of again that they've been digging for dirt on Prince Harry for years. I mean, for decades. And Meghan for years, and they have nothing.
Yeah. Well, and it also, I think the fact that it goes back so long kind of explains. I mean, Harry is really, really anti-press.
Yes. He thinks they killed his mother.
Yeah. And, I mean, to the point where it almost seems like a little too much. Even to the, I mean, the press, journalism in general, can do good things. And, I mean, once upon a time, there was, good investigative journalism. Mm-hmm. And to a large extent in the United States, that's gone away. But it almost seems like it spills out from him hating kind of tabloid journalism to him hating all journalism. And I think that's a little bit unfair. But then again, he thinks they killed his mom, rightfully, although I would argue that's tabloid press more than mainstream. And, I mean, if they've been hacking his email, hacking voicemails and, stuff for
People
years and
close
years
to
and
him.
years and years, I understand where he's coming from. But it does, and it makes it more, it makes it a little more understandable why he's so vehement about it when you realize how far back it goes and how, spying on, I mean, it's one thing to use, credible, appropriate journalistic tactics. It's another thing to hack into people's
like a teenager's voicemails.
Right.
I mean,
that's not journalism. That's
something
theft, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and I mean, I think people were tried for it. I think Piers Morgan got in big trouble when he was whatever. No, I mean, I think it's hard. I think the first hurdle is the hardest, which is, again, going back to kind of Prince William has bought the company line and Prince Harry hasn't, and he sees the press as a driving force behind the death of his mom.
Yeah.
And I think he said, some of his earliest memories are of being in a car with her, being chased by paparazzi.
Yeah.
And then that's how she died.
Yeah.
I think I'd hate him too.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I mean,
but anyway, again, this first episode, or I don't know, maybe more out. I've only seen parts of the first episode. But just kind of, again, reiterated that they don't have anything on them. And they have tried so hard. I mean, they've tried paying people to lie. They've tried searching out, behavioral specialists only if they'd say negative things. They've hacked into things. And they really have nothing on Harry and Meghan.
Well, clearly, because they report on idiotic things.
Like the price of their house.
Yeah.
Increasing, supposedly.
Yeah.
Okay, Bot Sentinel's still working on their little report about the Twitter people, but they found a bunch more instances of Kate Middleton fans blackfishing.
I don't know what that means.
It's when a white person pretends to be black, usually on Twitter.
Oh, like catfishing.
Yeah, but blackfishing.
Oh.
A bunch more.
That's bad.
That's bad. It's bad. It's weird.
It's weird.
It's weird. Like, literally in, the detail section, they'll be like, I'm a proud black woman, and they are not.
That's weird.
It's messed up.
Because they just want...
They want them to think that their racist criticism of Meghan Markle can't be racist because they're black. But they're not black.
And that Will and Kate can't be racist because they have all these black friends on Twitter?
Yeah, who aren't black. It was like, remember that politician forgot to log out of his account and said under his main account, said, as a black voter, I support that's... But these are full accounts. And sometimes they'll use fake photos.
That's going... I don't understand. People have too much time on their hands.
People do.
If they have too much time on if they have enough time on their hands to come up with this fake Twitter to be someone you're not.
I'm Henry VIII, by the way.
It's very strange. Well, that's true. But I mean, you don't say on there I'm a proud white man. I mean.
But it's weird.
And not actually claiming to be Henry VIII.
Maybe I am. I'll have to work on my Cambridge if I'm going to pretend to be British.
Yeah.
It's also been noted, it's kind of been weird, on Twitter, under certain hashtags about members of the royal family, specifically Prince William, positive tweets are always at the top, despite like negative or neutral or not so nice tweets having more engagement, they get shoved to the bottom.
But I mean, that sounds like, I mean, that's like a Twitter issue, and I find it incredibly hard to believe that Twitter as a company is going out of its way to be nice to Will and Kate.
I mean, I don't know, but it's weird.
I know, but I mean, maybe that's just a weird glitch.
How
or
would it
something.
be a glitch?
I mean, why would Twitter? I don't think Twitter.
I don't know. I'm just saying it's weird.
If Twitter as a company took sides in this whole thing, I really feel like they'd be Team Harry and Meghan.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think so. Because I mean, I think like the cool woke side of Twitter, but as a corporation,
Facebook and you know all the Meta companies. Yes, I get it. They're skewed right, but Twitter doesn't tend to be that way. I mean, Twitter has many faults, but but skewing right, I don't think is one of them.
I think you're wrong.
Okay.
Ooh.
Oh, we'll agree this. Get an edit feature Twitter.
Yeah, okay, that's true. We do agree on the edit Twitter, please.
Everyone on Earth agrees on that. Get an edit, or else I'll start not defending you.
Defending Mom, the Twitter defender. So moving on right down my timeline, Barbados is becoming, did I pronounce that one right?
As far as I know.
Oh, God. Is becoming a republic. But a recent poll of New Zealanders found that only 47% want to keep the monarchy, and it was 70% in 2012.
That seems like a pretty quick, sharp decline.
Yeah. They're so screwed when the Queen dies.
Yeah.
I mean, even if the past couple weeks have shown us what is going to happen when the Queen goes, as she's kind of been stepping back for health issues, it hasn't been going well.
Well, yeah, and especially like I think there's going to be a whole lot of Commonwealth countries dropping out.
Patada.
Yeah.
I just thought that was an interesting poll, and that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's that whole thing about Scotland. I think Scotland's next, to be perfectly honest, especially after all that Brexit nonsense. They're done.
Yeah.
They're over it. I went down a rabbit hole on Twitter with, calm, nice Twitter that definitely doesn't skew right, with multiple threads claiming... So Meghan went on Ellen.
I'm not saying there isn't right-wing accounts on Twitter.
Well, I know that's not what you're saying. I'm saying it's Twitter as a corporation. I think all corporations lean right.
Okay, maybe like as a company, like in their tax policy or something, but in their algorithm, I think Twitter has less problems than the Meta group does.
I agree with that. Facebook is worse.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I was pointing out a trend that for certain members of the royal family, there seems to be a little algorithm going on where nice tweets are left at the top and negative tweets, despite having more engagement, likes, retweets, whatever, aren't at the top. Where in other threads
maybe some of these bots and fake accounts and others somehow have figured out a way to keep them at the top by commenting or something. I don't know. I just think Twitter has less problems algorithm-wise than those other companies.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Facebook's worse. Facebook is the worst. Okay, back to my point.
I don't know. I got off it years ago, so I know what I read.
Back to my point. So Meghan went on Ellen.
Isn't Facebook like for the olds now? How come I'm off Facebook and you're on Facebook?
I'm like never on it. The things that I post on Instagram get posted on Facebook.
Okay.
And then people like both of them, which gives me gratification. Okay. So Meghan was on Ellen. She did something the UK didn't like, which is breathing. And so all of a sudden there were all these pro Kate Middleton. And I found this like rabbit hole where there were so many threads. I mean, these were big threads basically about how Kate Middleton deserves her titles because she's been silent when the press abused her and she didn't complain when her husband was being kind of a jackass in public. And it just seems like they're getting more bold, because that's crazy to say out loud in 2022, 2021. That basically a woman deserves titles because she stayed silent when people were being shitty to her.
Right.
And it seems like they've been working their way up to this point, and then now all of a sudden they're just like they said the quiet part out loud.
Well, yeah, I mean, to say the second part is like to admit that it's true.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obviously true. I mean...
And it's also a kind of, I guess, supposed to be some subtle dig at Meghan for, like, ever making a peep that maybe things aren't okay.
Yeah. Well, it's not a subtle dig. It's a very obvious dig at Meghan.
But yeah, I don't think praising women for keeping their mouth shut when there's bad things happening is a good
it's weird. And I mean, with their full chest, they're saying this. It's weird.
It's disturbing for sure that like, you know, they think that's a good thing.
Well, and I think it's telling, you know, anytime you're trying to go back with this Kate versus Meghan thing, which I don't necessarily maybe think either of them like, but that's what the press has made this into. That's what it always comes down to, is Kate looks good in clothes, she had kids, and she doesn't talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the country's like, woo!
Yeah. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is weird.
And then her lovely husband doubled down on racism.
Yeah.
So a couple years ago, as they were expecting Louis, not Louis, he made the comment about how Africans are having too many kids as he was expecting his third child. And the press rightfully was like, dude. That's a quote. They said, dude. And then he doubled down on it this week. Said it again.
Yeah. Well,
I asked like, how many times does someone have to say something that's racist before we're allowed to call them a racist?
Well, Maya Angelou got it right when she said, believe who someone is the first time they show you, you know.
Well, and it's like, you know, if he didn't mean it the first time, or if it was like said wrong, or, you know, like maybe, but he doubled down. He was like, no, they're having too many kids. That's the problem.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's misspeaking, and then there's...
Well, and when you misspeak, you apologize, too. And he never did that, and then he doubled down.
And I'm not sure even where the, you know... Africans are having too many kids. I mean,
it's not true. I mean, right. it's not true.
And plus, that's not even like a slip of the tongue. I mean, that's like saying something that apparently he didn't research, and you know, I don't know.
And what actually made me sad is they say he like regurgitates this crap because it, like, David Attenborough, who I love, apparently is a big fan of the Black Africans are having too many babies, and that's like the problem. I know she's cringing, but like that's where he gets that. Like that's what he's regurgitating this from. Anyway, he doubled down on it. Yeah, well. And there's a piece in the Times, I think today, basically trying to defend it, trying to say that's not actually what he meant. Even though they have the direct quote and that is what he meant.
Well, plus, whenever the defense of something is that you were misunderstood, it's usually bad.
Yeah, no, we understood.
I mean, yeah.
And then Kate made a bad school appearance, complete with kids who were obviously bored and uninterested, a bad speech about brains to children, and pictures where she once again looks like she's high on something.
Do you blame her?
No. All right. No. Kamala Harris bought a pan.
I know.
A $350 pan.
Good cookware is expensive. It was her own money, and who gives a I mean,
she bought a pan. I on Twitter, I said in today's episode of Black Women Can't Have Nice Things.
Well, yeah, it's... she spent $300 on a pan. Good cookware is expensive. It'll probably last, 50 years.
Yeah.
Donald Trump spent our money.
Millions. At resorts he owns.
Golfing and otherwise doing things that were not beneficial to anyone but himself. Mm-hmm. And the press barely made a peep.
Yeah.
She spent $300 of her own money.
We have Le Creuset.
Although
we don't fly first class, but we have Le Creuset. That Dutch oven I use a bunch, that was like $360.
Yeah.
I'm Kamala Harris rich.
Well, mine was, I think mine that I have actually was gifted, but it's expensive. And, it's her money. She can spend it how she wants. Who cares?
But she can't.
She likes to cook.
She can't spend it how she wants because it reminds all those people in the flyover states that she has more money than them. And that makes them economically insecure.
But the man with the gold toilets, they love. I mean, come on. It's ridiculous.
He's a blue-collar billionaire, Mom.
It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. It is. Although I have to admit that I was one of those people that when I first saw the headline that says Kamala Harris bought $325 pot, I did not think about the cooking implement.
You thought she was over in France?
I thought she was over in France buying weed.
I'd like her even more.
I mean, I wouldn't have necessarily thought it was a bad thing, but it just was like, what? Anyway.
Whatever.
It was a horrible headline because
I'm gonna use my Le Creuset Dutch oven today. In protest.
All right.
That it was also a gift.
But I mean, they're expensive.
It's a wedding gift.
I mean, and that's why people get stuff like that for wedding gifts because they'll last forever and it's expensive.
All right, last thing on the agenda. Prince William got caught, and I say caught because if you look at the photos, he was clearly caught. He did not expect photos to be taken of him, leaving a notoriously private club with an unidentified woman in the front seat. And no one cares. Oh, and the Daily Mail already deleted the story.
Well, I mean, I don't know what he was doing. I mean,
have you seen the photos?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's just worse that he's out clubbing till the morning. I think if there was some relationship there between he and this woman, they would have both been in the back seat if the person in the front was driving was a driver.
Yeah. But it's ridiculous.
But I mean, the fact that he's out overnight and comes home at 7 a.m.
Well, no. So apparently that was wrong. He came home the same night. Oh, okay. But still, he looks like freaking, what's that guy in Lord of the Rings who's like Gollum with the ring? Who's like, he's mad. He looks bad. And there just has been kind of repeatedly over the years, William being out alone. With women in his orbit, and it's always treated with kid gloves, right? Like the Daily Mail's already deleted the story.
I mean,
can you imagine if it was Harry?
Car, I mean, it would be.
I mean, if Harry had been in a separate car and in traffic, 3 cars behind him was a pretty lady, they would have been like, "Oh, their marriage is over."
Yeah.
It just again goes to show that. And okay, also though, I just don't think anyone like the level of apathy towards them is so intense. Like, I honestly don't even think they could have a scandal right now because no one would care.
Yeah.
No one would care.
Yeah.
So it's like, why? I mean, I get why the press, to a degree, isn't going to touch it because they're going to make the palace mad for like no return because no one will care.
Well, that's probably quite true.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's all crazy.
It's all crazy.
There. That's the title of this. Yeah. It's all crazy.
All right.
We'll see you in like a week or 2.
Don't watch Spencer.
Try and stay off right-wing Twitter. And have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.